there is a place where everyone has a voice. In that place, you will find information, inspiration, and great conversation. Welcome to the Amen Corner, telling the truth in your city, with your host, Amos King. And now, here's Mr. Amos King in the Amen Corner.
Welcome to the Amen Corner, where we tell the truth in your city. Colonel King, how you doing today?
All is well, Colonel Rollerson. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm just glad to be here. Seems like God is calling everybody home this month.
My Lord.
I mean, we lost Hank Aaron. We lost Cecily Tyson.
Well.
We lost C.Q. Smith.
I
mean, he's just calling people home.
And John Chaney went home.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Coach of Temple.
Temple.
Yeah, from Florida. Your homeboy. He went home.
Yeah. Well, that's what's going on now, man. They're just calling everybody home. I was sorry to hear about the passing of Cecily Tyson. I don't know if you can remember back to these days, but I remember growing up as a kid, there was only 4 or 5 black people on TV. Yeah, Sammy Davis Jr., Harry Belafonte, Cecily Tyson,
Sidney Poitier. Yeah.
Correct. And then I forgot the name of the guy that was always the servant for John Wayne. There was a black guy.
Oh, yeah, I know you're talking about. Cowboy, the cowboy.
Yeah, I don't know
6'5", Scrode. His name's Scrode.
Yeah.
But
I mean, when you look at TV today, we forget. Just a few years ago, there was a time when, my God, 4 or 5 black faces on TV.
Colonel, so we need to do like there today. Hold My Mule. Cecily Tyson was 96 years young. The Bible said 70 by measure of good faith, 80, which is 80.
A reason of strength.
Yeah, well, she was on borrowed time.
I hope it wasn't mine.
I hope it wasn't mine either. 16 years or somebody's time. So we ought to be excited, man, that and John Chaney was 89.
Wow.
My. Now, they beat the race. But sooner or later, death will walk you down.
Yeah.
But you know what's very interesting, Colonel Ross? I'm going to tell you this, man. It's amazing to hear somebody say, I can't believe she died. What? She was 96 years old.
Colonel King, I went to a service for a 96-year-old lady. And you know how they always have the solo that they sing. And the lady got up and sung the solo. And the title of the solo was Gone Too Soon. And I started looking around. Wait a minute, the lady was 96 years old. I mean, how long did you think you were supposed to live here? Well, yeah, so gone too soon. So, man, hey. But I tell you what, people are going out of here every day.
The songwriter said one by one. Oh, Larry King left here too.
Yeah, Larry King's gone.
Yeah, they're going to have a hell of a show up in heaven, ain't they? All of them up there. Together, my. You know.
I'm glad you think the show will be in heaven.
It's getting late in the evening, Carl. As the old folks say, it's getting late in the evening, the sun going down. You just never know. So you need to be ready.
Get your stuff together.
Get it together at all times.
Spirit together.
Yeah, you got to get it ready. But nevertheless, the Lord has allowed us to see a few more days, and we're going to cherish the time we have here. Got a very interesting show here tonight. I'm sure Facebook or the Secret Service, somebody is blocking my page. I don't have nobody. Something is wrong. It got to be wrong. When I came on, somebody was on it, but now they gone off. But I'm not going to worry about that. I can see where they live and they just can't. I'm going to turn around anyway. But we got a very exciting show, Carol. We're not going to waste no time, man. We're going to get right into it. We put heavyweights on here, man. So we don't play around, man. You ain't going to see Ray and Puku over here. That ain't going to happen. T.I. and Killer Mike. No, that ain't going to happen. We want some substance. And me and this young man here, we got something in common. We both can sing. Now, if you come to Beulah, now I'm going to tell you, you're a politician. Just sit out there in the audience and wave. As far as you're going.
They won't let politicians talk in bills?
What? Jesus can't get that mic.
Oh.
But it just so happened, me and Brother Jones today, both of us looked at each other when he called us up. You remember that?
I remember.
And it let us express ourselves and everything. And that happened. And that was a monumental moment, man. It happened since.
Is there real black no more let that happen?
Oh, no, man. No. He wave at you. But we're very excited today. Carlos, we got one of our very own here today, Mr. Emanuel Jones, a veteran. Good friends of the veterans. Every time I've called him, he's always been assisted, helped us, and we got him out here tonight. We'll talk about some things, what's going on down at the Capitol. We need to know what's going on at the Capitol, right? We need to be kept informed. That's one thing I talk about all the time on this show. We don't know what's going on.
And that's a big problem in our neighborhood. Our people are just ignorant of exactly what's going on around them. And I'll bring one topic up. I had it on my sheet. You know, after the election, what's going on now with Governor Kemp wanting to modify the process for absentee ballots and requiring, you know.
Well, let's get into that after this here, but I want to give Mr. Jones enough time. He's got an issue that he want to talk about concerning the Attorney General, is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We want to talk about that, and a couple other things we'll talk about, and then we move on with our show. I definitely want to get in, Mr. Jones, why this election in DeKalb County right now was not put on the ballot before. Because if I go ask 30 people right now, 29 of them don't know there's an election going on.
Correct.
And that's sad. I go further than that. You know, I check on the numbers. All the early voting, Colonel Rose, you're not a bad man, you're a religious man. How many people you think have voted already?
Early voting now?
Early voting.
At this point in time?
Yeah. You got 3 counties you're dealing with: Henry, DeKalb, and Rockdale.
Probably 100 people in each county, maybe.
I'm not going to put you on the spot, Mr. Jones. I'm just going to tell you, 48.
Oh, Lord.
So if we get 300 out at the end, you know, most likely definitely be a runoff. But we'll get into that after he finishes. Welcome to the show, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Colonel Kane.
We're so happy to have you here. And as we say, Colonel Rose, Mr. Jones is a veteran. He's been out there on the front line with us, so he knows how veterans feel, think, and he knows the problems of the veteran. And it's good to have somebody like that speak the same language that you do.
That we do, yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find veterans these days. I mean, it seems like all the veterans, you know, most people in our neighborhood don't serve no more.
No, they ain't serving.
I don't know what the problem is. I think it's those green uniforms or something.
What's going on with you, Mr. Jones?
I'm just enjoying the start of the legislative session. This is our start of week 2. And we got a lot of important issues on the table. First of which, we got to deal with the budget, because that sets the tone and that sets the priority. I serve on the Appropriations Committee, and we're already holding hearings. Hearings on what we're going to do in dealing with the budget and how we're going to spend this $27 billion for the great state of Georgia.
What else is going on down at the Capitol? You, in reference to Mr. Carr.
Well, what I learned during the first day of the legislative cycle, and I actually spoke from the well about this and put a Facebook post out there as well, is that our Attorney General, Chris Carr, who chairs the RAGA Committee, which is a Republican Attorney General's Association, and much to my surprise, I learned that he, in fact, RAGA, through their legal defense arm, they call it the Rule of Law Defense Fund, actually sponsored, one of the chief sponsors of the Save America, quote, Stop the Steal rally up in Washington, D.C. on January the 6th.
Is that right?
So imagine how I felt as a legislator to learn that my Attorney General, who we trust with upholding the law, particularly after a contested election, particularly after the remarks that our president made in Georgia regarding our election and the issues surrounding ballots, and he wanted to count ballots, I think, about 3 or 4 different times.
And they did.
In an attempt to overturn the election, overturn the will of the people right here in the state of Georgia, only to find out that the Attorney General was one of the main and primary sponsors, his organization that he chairs up in Washington, D.C., in terms of trying to, and they couldn't stop the ballots were being counted, and they figured they would just have this insurrection and violent insurrection and attempted coup up in Washington, D.C., and his organization was a part of that. That's what
Wow.
troubles me.
That's amazing. Rollerson.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the problem where our people don't know what's going on in regards to our elected officials. Is why would the state attorney general be involved in the steal the election kind of rhetoric that has been going on? Everybody that's got good sense knows that this is, quote, quote, a lie. It's an error and a myth. So why would an elected official be involved in this? When, especially right here in Georgia, the Republican Secretary of State, they confirmed what was going on here in Georgia, just like every other state. The Secretary of State's confirmed the election. This particular election had less problems than any election in our recent history. But we've got this group of people going out there now talking about, somehow the election was stolen. You even got a congressman up there in northern Georgia for the United States.
Say that.
I mean, it's an embarrassment to the United States to have a representative, and I say it's embarrassment for Georgia because she's from Georgia, even though she's not from this area, but just representing Georgia with all of these falsehoods. And I mean, it's almost like these people are out of their minds with all of these crazy conspiracy theories. But I'm glad we do have some good people that's in our political process. And thank you for serving here as a senator here in the state of Georgia. And one of the things, and I'm going to ask you to expound upon this, the thing I brought up earlier about the absentee ballot. Clearly, there was not a problem with absentee ballots for this past election. So what is going on now to put restrictions on absentee ballots is all geared to stopping Democratic people from voting. But it's even worse than that. On this show, we like to represent the elderly. Now, based on what they are proposing, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that means you got to go take a picture of an ID when you send the request in for the absentee ballot, and then you got to send another picture of the ID back with the ballot. Now, where will our elderly citizens have access to a copier to make copies of IDs?
Well, they wouldn't. And let's call it what it is. It's voter suppression.
Exactly.
And the Republicans have stated publicly, well, if we can't win fairly, we may as well cheat. That's what their philosophy is. And I remember back in the legislature early in my career where we had the voter ID law. You may recall the voter ID law, whereas everyone had to get a voter ID. And that had a suppressive element to it because we didn't have those IDs, particularly the elderly, as you so mentioned, in the rural parts of the state. But we complied with that law. We went out, we got our elderly the voter IDs that they need, and now they're coming back after weren't able to suppress the vote using voter IDs. Let's come up with another tactic to suppress the vote. Only because we're now winning elections again. Anytime we're out there winning elections, the Republicans are always trying to find a way to undermine our efforts in winning elections and to suppress the black vote. Why is that important? Because they know people of color overwhelmingly vote Democratic. So if you can find a way to suppress the minority vote, and particularly not just black but brown people as well, then you're suppressing the vote for the Democratic candidates. And that's the whole thrust behind their efforts.
Mr. Jones, you've been in the Senate for a while now.
That's correct. This is my 17th year.
17th year. That's a long time, man.
I've been through a lot, too. I've been through a lot of battles.
You've been there. You're one of the few that have been there a long time.
Yes, and I remember when they started that voter ID law, one of the things that I did, I brought some shackles and chains into the Senate, and they still remember that today, by the way.
You was kind of risque back then. I said, this guy ain't gonna be here long.
Haven't changed.
Yeah, but our people have got to step up and push back on these kind of voter suppression, things. I mean, it's just like, they just propose these things, and then the next thing you know is law. Mm-hmm. Nobody really pushes back hard and says, let's just call it for what it is. Outright voter suppression.
Absolutely. And you got to remember, you can't just get an absentee ballot. First, you have to send in an application to the Secretary of State requesting an absentee ballot. And, of course, anyone can do that for you. But once you get that absentee ballot, that's coded, that's numbered, that's sent directly to you. Mm-hmm. When that ballot is returned, they do an exact match on your signature. So it's sent directly to your home. You have to enclose it in the letter and the envelope that they send to you, and there's multiple places on that ballot where you have to sign.
So in essence, taking a copy of your ID really is not adding any value to the process.
None whatsoever.
It's just some laborious steps just to make it difficult for some people to actually get an absentee ballot. Interesting.
Mr. Jones, I'm very candid on this show, and we don't talk about a lot of people here and everything, but it's time up for some of them down there. I'm just going to tell you, they're not doing what they're supposed to do. You one of the few, and if you weren't doing nothing, I would tell you ain't doing nothing. But I've seen you out there working for the people. This is what gets me. When we have these ballots, and they got these referendums, Carlos, on the ballot. I go to 2-3 lawyers and say, hey, explain this to me. They said, man, I don't know. So I know Miss Mary, that's 75 years old, don't know. Mm-hmm. Nobody hardly comes back to our neighborhood and explains to us what these people are. They could be voting their house away. They don't have a clue. I think it's the responsibility of the legislators to have town hall meetings. I think you've done that before.
Yes.
I know with the ethics bill board and everything else. But we've got to get more of that to find out exactly because the way they're written, like they were just written for lawyers.
Yeah, it's legalese.
Yeah.
And in fact, I agree with you. You either got to have town hall meetings or send out some flyers that'll actually put it in simplified terms so that the common person could actually understand what's going on, what you're voting on. Because I'm like you, I go and vote and get hit with 2 or 3. You be sitting there going like, what am I voting for? You don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
And that's intentional, by the way.
Yeah, it's intentional.
It's intentional.
It's intentional. And same with the ethics board. I know anybody in their right mind, you ask them, do you need to have an ethics board? Yeah, they need it. They're going to say, yeah, we need to have an ethics board. But they don't know the just behind it. They don't really know that. So they'll go check off on it, and it means the opposite, man. If people, you don't live in the county, Colonel Rollerson, but I think the last 3 elections we had, the ethics board been on the ballot.
Well, you're correct, because it took us 2 years to pass ethics in DeKalb County. Mm-hmm. The first year around, the courts told us, and they basically invalidated the board members, mm-hmm. and they said the board members, essentially the board could not operate. So, and that's an issue that I worked on for 2 years, been able to pass it. Of course, last year, not last year, but 2019, the ethics bill was on the referendum was on the ballot, and that it was very divisive at the time, and it really shouldn't have been, because the only thing that we did in the legislature was to take what the judges had said to us, and we reappointed some members to the ethics board. Mm-hmm. That did not sit well with the Northern Party. Remember, back in 2019, it was a mayoral election. It mm-hmm. wasn't countywide.
Yeah.
In 2020, we put the same ethics bill back on the same referendum, back on the new ballot for 2020, and it passed over 80%. So go figure.
Look like you got a pretty decent board this time.
Yes.
Some people on that you got. Hopefully we can get some things done. But, the bottom line here is with ethics, if you do wrong, you're going to do some time. You got to go. That's the bottom line.
Well, I mean, we have got to be willing to move people out of office. Say for example, like most people probably don't know this, but we're paying right now for 2 insurance commissioners here in Georgia. 2. You know why?
Why?
Because the former one was accused of some sort of fraud or stealing money and using it for his election. And so what they did, they just suspended him with pay. So the current guy in office is getting paid, and the previous guy that's under suspension is getting paid.
Well, that seems like how the DeKalb County works. We're probably paying 4 superintendents right now.
I wouldn't doubt it.
In the last, I'm not, I'm not being facetious. I bet you in the last 10 years, they've had 6 superintendents. In the most important race in DeKalb County, the school board races. People don't know that. It ain't the Senate or the CEO. The school board race is the most important. It determines your tax expense. But they've had almost 6. Well, they have had 6 superintendents. They go to jail, they go to hell, or they go all over the place. They've been having to get them in. And that's ridiculous. We're still paying some of these people.
Yeah, not to mention the ones we didn't hire that we now dealing with lawsuits because they weren't hired. So that may be another 7th one we did.
So hopefully the ethics board can help clear up some of these things, and because for the insurance commissioner, I don't understand why the governor just can't come out and say, "Nah, we just gonna have 1. We only paying 1." I'm sorry, but we can't waste taxpayers' money paying somebody that's now, I guess, under indictment or whatever, and they just waiting around to try to figure out what they're gonna do.
You're innocent until proven guilty. So that's why and it take a long time to prove you're guilty in Georgia.
Well, if you're innocent, use your own money.
Let's get back to Attorney General Carr.
Sure.
This is very interesting because, you don't see a whole lot of people talking about it or anything. And I'm sure the powers to be know about it.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
They're not really pushing it. If that was Emanuel Jones, you'd be hung up on the tree out there. They'd be talking about you and everything else.
Well, there's a lot of things that's coming out about Attorney General Carr, and he's been, 19, 20 days since this violent insurrection up in D.C., and notice that he still hasn't spoken, given any comments to the press or done any interviews. And I've been calling him out and called for his resignation. Some additional information I learned was that on January the 5th, up in D.C., up at Trump Tower, his executive director for RAGA, the Republican AG Association, was present in a meeting room along with Donald Trump Jr., Michael Flynn was there, and they had a couple of the other Trump cronies that was in that room the day before this violent insurrection up in D.C. He had his executive director up there. And that's important for the people to know because this attorney general was complicit. He need to come in front of the people and explain what his role was and all of that. And that's important for good government. Let me tell you why I would not let this issue go. Our president challenged the election results in Georgia. And when he challenged the election results, he insisted on having recounts multiple times. Not only that, but you remember the tape that was released when he called our Secretary of State. That tape made national headlines. So not only was he asking for a recount, but he was actively trying to overturn the election here in Georgia and have the Republican Secretary of State, the Republican governor, Republican Lieutenant Governor throw the election his way. Told him to go find some more votes.
Yeah, go find me 11,000 plus votes.
So where's our Attorney General? Where's the man who's trusted with protecting the integrity of our election system? Where is he in all of this? Up in New York, the Attorney General is very aggressive when it comes to dealing with Trump. Why isn't our Attorney General just as aggressive, knowing this man perhaps may have committed some crimes?
Are you the only one calling for his resignation?
I am not. Congressman Hay Johnson has called for his resignation. I know our candidate for Attorney General, one of our candidates, Chris Bailey, has called for his resignation as well, and others out there has called for his
Where's the
resignation.
NAACP, the SCLC? Nick Rose hanging on the corner, all them. What they had, man? I mean, they need to be calling for his other state senators as well as lawmakers need to be doing that, man.
Absolutely, because those votes that he's trying to disenfranchise are people of color. He's trying to disenfranchise us, and that's what bothers me more than anything else. With this Attorney General.
Ossoff and Warnock ought to be speaking up on behalf of this particular issue.
Wait a minute, Colonel Rollerson. Now they got to find their way to the bathroom. They just got there. They don't know their way to the bathroom up there. Hey. Give them a break now. Give them a break.
but they know how to find a microphone.
They know how to find a mic
and a camera.
Boy, I tell you, both of them from a different mother. They brothers from a different mother. I'm very impressed with Warnock. He ran a good campaign.
Intelligent campaign.
He did. I tell you what, I'm glad of. I'm glad every 15 minutes I was getting a text message. Every hour I'm getting a phone call. And every 20 minutes he got a new commercial. How much money was spent with the Democratic Party,
That was well over $300 million invested in this race for those U.S. Senate seats. But the balance of power in this country was at stake. And there was no price tag. I know I contributed generously to what I had in order for us to win those seats, both for Ossoff and, of course, for our good friend, Pastor Raphael.
Well, we're just going to report it right here. You contribute. You give half of it. You give half of that thing.
No. Maybe a fraction of 1%.
Let's sell a car here now. I want y'all. Do y'all know what this is? I mean, you got to Union City. Is some store still out there?
McDonough, Georgia.
McDonough. My daughter them live down there, man. I have to tell them to go by there and get a wheel or something, man. I'm gonna bring this up, Colonel Rollerson, because I didn't like it, and you might not care answer this, Mr. Jones. I didn't like what the Democratic Party did with John Lewis' seat.
Oh yeah.
I don't think that was fair. One day they tell you to pick somebody, and you got that person already picked. And then we just look real crazy. People running for the seat for 30 days.
Yeah, I mean that didn't logically make a whole lot of sense to me.
We ain't gonna blast you out here, because but I'm just saying that didn't.
I am staying out of that one.
That makes sense, man. It didn't make sense at all, Carlos.
I mean, it was a waste of money to have the election, so that for 20 to 25 days left on the term.
Think about it psychologically. He can say, I was a U.S. congressman. That's it. See, a lot of these guys go to Africa, other countries. When they go over there, they put that on their name. That means something. U.S. congressman. Well, he ain't lying.
No.
They just say, how long?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that make you appear to be a big person.
And the sad part about it, there was a whole lot of people that lined up.
Yeah.
For these 25 days or so. And I'm sitting there going, this don't make no sense.
Don't make no sense at all.
Why couldn't, the person that was appointed originally just finish out the last 25 days?
The other thing, Mr. John, I want to mention about the Democrat Party, and we move on. You said they spent over $300 million. Why they didn't help Mr. Bachman? What's his name? The brother run for Public Service Commission.
Daniel Blackman. Daniel Blackman is a really good friend. Daniel, I've known for a very long time. And Daniel just did not have the personal resources like the other candidates had. And the seat that he was running for was one of those seats that commissioner in charge of our utilities. It was the kind of seat that people did not pay a lot of attention to, and it's unfortunate because we had an excellent candidate in Daniel Blackman. And I attended a lot of the rallies that we held here in the area, along with Ossoff and Warnock, and he was present. He was there. He was given a platform, but he wasn't given the kind of platform that the other candidates had with.
Why the Democratic Party didn't help him out? They was giving a lot of money, and he should have got 3 or 4 commercials out of that. Don't answer that. I'm gonna answer it. Colonel Rose, we talked about that. That is definitely, as a Democrat, I feel that man was slighted. Now I know he picked it back off Warnock. I mean, so did Ossoff. He picked it back off Warnock. And he got 2 million votes. But I didn't see this guy have one. The Democratic Party could have gave the man $5 million to do some commercials or something.
Here's where the problem runs in. It's all about the power in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
We've been on here telling our folk whatever. You have to pay attention to what's going on locally. See, here on that Public Service Commission, the benefits were to the local citizens here.
Mm-hmm.
This had nothing to do with the power in Washington, but this is what locally we should have been focused in on, because in this Public Service Commission, these are the people that's supposed to be the watchdogs for the citizens, keeping Georgia Power from being predatory towards you with their billing.
But we don't know. I mean, we don't know what the guy does or anything. We don't know because there's not a lot of media here in DeKalb County. It's not. When you look at it, and I tell people all the time, you know, they want to advertise, so they say V103, 104. That ain't gonna help you out here. I mean, the people out here is not listening to that.
Yep.
You know, I mean, down in the city, maybe. I mean, when we was on 1480, okay, the older people listen to WYZ all the time, but they don't get it. They don't know, and I think the county has a responsibility to get the word out. Now, this is a great transition. There's an election going on right now.
Yes.
85% of the county don't even know it. They don't know it, you know.
Totally in the dark.
And I told them we're not going to announce it on this show until after the other election because we didn't want to confuse the people, you know, that there's another election in February. What? What election in February? I kind of heard some things through the crack, and I'm going to bring this up, Colonel Rollerson. Very disappointing in the governor. He should have put it on there. But I understand, are you guys doing some rezoning or redistricting down there now? In the sessions?
We're going to have a special session probably in August, September to deal with the issues surrounding redistricting and reapportionment. That's going to be, but not in this session that we're in now.
How crucial is it that District 90 is not represented right now?
Well, you have in that district 100,000 people that don't have representation underneath the gold dome. That's important. Everyone that lives in that district, everyone deserves to have equal representation down at the General Assembly. And it's unfortunate that this race was put off, and it should not have been put off. But we need to remind everybody that there is a race, there is an election in DeKalb County, in Henry County, in Rockdale County. Yeah. That district almost touches my home as well. And it's on February the 5th, and we got to encourage people to get out to vote.
Is it 5th or 9th? It's the 5th, February 5th?
February the 5th.
Okay, February the 5th. All right.
So who was responsible for putting this election off?
Well, you know, you got to put it off.
Yeah, I mean somebody.
Oh, the governor. I mean, the governor.
Yes.
Think about it now. Think about it. When they're going to start redistricting, they don't know what's going on down there. You can slip some stuff in. It always go to the top. You know, it's like the person at the top always responds. Just like who's responsible for getting the word out here in the county? The CEO is really pretty much. You know, I mean, directly he's not here, but he's in charge. So he's got to take a responsibility to say, hey, people don't know. Mr. Tillman over at the Election Commission. You got to get things out here to people. I mean, the county can send out a mailer. We picked up $125 million for COVID. Send a mailer out to the people and say, listen, I think it's important that people know that there's an election going on. There's 100,000 people think it's important.
Yeah, you vote on somebody that's going to be your representative at the state level.
Especially when the lady resigned September 5th. Now, he needs to be called in on that and said, Mr. Governor, why did you wait so late, you know, to do this right here? If I lived in that district over there, that's what I would be saying. I'd be down there with a one-man sign. You know, say, why?
What's going on?
This is why we can't allow these type of things to happen. Now, let's move real quick to Atlanta. Colonel Rollerson, me and you going to talk about this here because the state senator can't talk about this here. He don't live out there. I see some stuff going over there I don't like with the mayor's race.
Oh.
Now
and in fact, I'm going to ask you, in fact, I made myself a note to ask you in terms of who is Felicia Moore.
I'm going to tell you who she is. Felicia Moore been down there on the city council 20 years. I think she's the president of the council, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
She's been there 20 years. Okay. See, this one you got to put the tie on Negro's neck right here. A case like this here. Most likely Keisha Bottom will run again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she's gonna run again. It'd probably take about $1 million to win that race down there for the mayor. All right. Keisha Bottom only won by 700 some votes last time. You know why she won? She came on our show. That's right.
Right before the election.
Right before the election.
We got over the top.
We got over the top. But it won't happen this time because guess what they've done? They've annexed it Emory in. That's 4,800 votes. And all these, every high rise going up.
Yep.
We're not in it. Mm-hmm. So mathematically, and what's the word I'm looking for? Y'all went to a white school. What word I'm looking for?
What are you talking about? Based on the demographics that we got right now, it will be very difficult.
Very difficult. And Felicia Moore is going to split the vote. Okay? She's going to split the vote. That's why black people don't need to support her.
Yeah. In fact,
that's right.
When I saw that, I thought going to come back and say, well, why do we do that? I mean, they always tell us, we like crabs in a barrel.
Yeah.
Always looking to pull the person that's trying to climb out back in there with us. I mean, it's one thing if Mayor Bottoms was a bad mayor, and everybody didn't like her, and there needed to be an alternative. So what's her angle?
Well, what's she going to do that Bottoms not doing? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, that's why. Well, who is she? I know she was president of the city council, but
I read somewhere that she was saying, well, Mayor Bottoms don't, I guess, support the police. They don't have enough police. Well, guess what? The city council determined that. The city council approves and everything. So y'all not supporting the police. That's just like the DA case down there, Miss Willis.
Mm-hmm.
She worked for that man 17 years. And then ran against him. So if he jacked up, you jacked up.
Yeah, but did you hear what she? But did you hear what she did lately?
Yeah, we gonna talk about it.
All of them cases, she done kicked them.
She don't want. And see, if you go in the office, if you want to go in the office, you need to have enough balls to rule on stuff. Not try to get out the way so you can get in there with turn on the police and be scared of them. Now she talking about what Mr. Howard didn't do. Mr. Howard is gone. All right, you need to. We pick you to rule over them cases. She want to get rid of all of it, having to do with the police, having to do with Mr. Brooks. Come on, man.
Yeah, she want to turn them all to the attorney general.
That's pitiful, man.
But we voted for her to take care of Fulton County. But
that's your county. You live in Fulton.
I live in Fulton County. In fact, I got all kind of issues with Fulton County. I mean, we don't have enough time for me to go through all my issues with Fulton County. Just like we were saying earlier about the school board. That's the most important people that you are voting for on the school board. In Fulton County, especially in Atlanta, there is a controversy going on. The guys that are over development for the city of Atlanta, they want to kick APS off of their board. You know why? APS is talking about, well, y'all, when y'all do your development, you give these guys all these kind of tax breaks and stuff, whatever. And so we're losing money. Mm-hmm. So you got one, they're concerned about the money, not that, when this development comes in, people are going to get jobs. And I mean, it's a bigger picture, but they got the little small picture thing. They're just worried about their money. So, it's, as far as I'm concerned, you can throw them all off and start over.
Mr. Jones, I mean, you've been out here 17 years in the cab doing a great job. What's next for Emanuel Jones?
That's a really good question, Colonel. But I like playing it close to the vest. And I've enjoyed serving and representing DeKalb County. And I will respond to the will of the people. There are other opportunities out there. We have flipped Georgia blue. We now have an opportunity 2 years from now, in 2022 election, to elect the new governor, to elect a new lieutenant governor, to elect a new insurance commissioner, to elect a new attorney general. So we have an opportunity to really flip Georgia blue. We flipped our federal officers Now we need to flip this state of Georgia. And I want to be a part of that. I want to be out there helping and assisting Democrats, committed Democrats, invested Democrats to capture these offices.
Well,
that's my goal.
Carlos, around the 8-man corner, we do all that talking and things. Your name came up, Mr. Jones, about who even have a remote chance of winning somebody. Not too. If you call it a roll, it won't take long.
No.
It won't take long. And you was one of them. And I'll just go ahead and put it out there. And somebody say, I wouldn't want to see you be CEO because that's only 2 terms. We got to get you in a position where you can serve for a few years. See, I think a lot of people go in these wrong positions, man, and they limit it to what they do. They go in there for financial gain or something else. Not saying that about Mr. Thurman. He already rich before he went in, but I think that a position for you, you're still young, and we got to get some young people in there.
Sure.
We got to kick the door down and put some people out. They've been serving too long, and they have become career politicians. We got to get some younger people in there to move on. Colonel Rollerson, I'm going to leave it at that. There's some other officers, off the cuff. I'll tell you one of the biggest concerns we have right now is the Armed Forces Committee, Service Committee. One black on that. I would hope Mr. Walnock, I don't know, they pick it for you what committee and stuff you're on up there, I think. I don't think you go in there asking for it, but we're underserved on that, Colonel Rose.
Oh yeah, and in fact, you talking about the armed forces and stuff. Going back to the VA, I just saw something in the news recently that 2 ladies were pled guilty for embezzling $124,000 that was meant, for veterans. How they have these HOPE programs.
Yeah.
Where they pay a certain portion of the housing for veterans. Well, they were getting the money, but they weren't paying the housing. They were pocketing the money or putting it into organizations that they owned and ran. I mean, it's a lot of these kind of things that go on that I will say this here. There is not an absence of money. What we've got is a misuse of a lot of money. And we can shrink the misuse and just get the money going to where it was originally directed. And like you said, we're underserved. We don't have people on these committees to speak up for us and to make sure. And here again is a classic example. Not many minorities on the Armed Forces Committee. Now, I'm going to take you back a few years. You've been here for a while. You remember how it was when Sam Nunn was the senator and was over the Armed Forces Committee? Georgia got their fair share. Big time. But since Sam retired, Georgia has been slowly slipping, in terms of the armed forces and the money coming to Georgia. You
and I was in the Army at this time. They was talking about closing bases. Sam Nunn stepped in. I'm talking about major bases here. So no, we can't do that. I've got 500,000 people working out in Augusta, at Fort Gordon, Fort Stewart. No, we can't do that. You had Max Cleveland. They spoke up for the veterans. And just to let you know, Mr. Jones, what our intentions are, our organization, Justice for Veterans, we're going to open up a veteran resource center. We're working on that now, Colonel Rose. Open up a veteran resource center where we'll be able to help the veterans. And our aim is a little bit different than the VA. We're dealing with mental illness, education, homelessness, not more so with claims. That claims is a different animal. You need to go to the professionals with that.
Sure.
But we're in the very near future. One of the commissioners here, Ms. Johnson, Lorraine Cochran Johnson, we're working on opening up a veteran resource center here in DeKalb County.
Please find a way that I can be a part of that, because veterans are near and dear to my heart. Not only am I a veteran, but my family, I come from a family of veterans as well. My brother, older brother, retired from the military, staff sergeant after 24 years, and he suffers from severe PTSD. So anytime we can get any kind of treatment for veterans, any kind of support groups, I always want to be a part of it.
Yeah, and it is definitely needed. We've got some serious issues with the veterans, Mr. Jones. As you know, when you came in, you didn't hear about 22 people committing suicide a day.
No.
Not at all. Not a day. And now, so the question is, where did this come from, Colonel Rose? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How is this happening? Where is it coming from? I think I know what the military won't do and what they're not doing. They're not doing a study on who committing suicide, the color, the age, what's causing it. Because when you look around most of the time, when I see all the effects happen, it's African Americans.
Yeah. And see, that's one of those issues that the military tries to sweep under the rug.
Absolutely.
They do not want that particular issue to get much traction or notoriety out there. They just want to sweep that underneath the rug. And there's lots of veterans with mental issues. I mean, everybody can look in their family. I bet you every family has at least one relative that's suffering from some sort of mental disorder.
Yeah.
And that's something that, that has to be, increased. And we talked with our CEO Thurman and the head of the police in DeKalb County. They just had one unit to support just one. They may have more now. We heard recently that there were other cities, that were adding these units, to their policing effort, because they realize when they run up on a lot of veterans, a lot of people out on the street, it's all because of mental illness, and you have to deal with them differently.
And we've gone to different counties. Cobb County, we talked to Chief Register up there once, a young man who supposedly had a bomb in the backpack and went in the bank. He was killed. We met with Cobb County Chief. I met down there with Henry. Major worked down there. We met with them. We met with Mr. Thurman and the police chief here in DeKalb County. I've talked to Chief Sheriff over in Fulton, Jackson, about how we could work with them to help with the veterans, because it's a serious issue. In Cobb, the young lady, Keisha Holmes, committed suicide and killed her 3 kids. As a veteran, she thought all hope was gone. Right here in DeKalb, Mr. Williams killed his grandmother, threw her out on the highway at 20. As a veteran, numerous of times she called to tell him, come get him. And they respond, well, he hadn't done nothing criminal.
Right.
He ended up killing her. Quintarius Harris, who was shot at 57 times by 4 police officers here, schizophrenic, bipolar, that was a veteran. So there's a lot of issues. When the police come out there, they don't know whether you're a veteran or not. So they should be going by rules and regulations, policies and procedures. But we just try to alter today. We do not want the next Anthony Hill case where police end up pulling his gun, shooting a naked man. We can avoid that. We can avoid that through legislation. We can. So these are the type of things when we meet with the law enforcement to talk about.
Yeah. And earlier you talked about the budget for the state. There's a couple of things, from a budgetary standpoint. I'm just going to put them out right now. We just talked about PTSD for veterans, but with all of these frontline workers that's going through this pandemic now, somewhere in the distant future, they are going to be suffering from life kind of issues.
Absolutely.
Somebody needs to have some money set aside to deal with this right now, because it's coming. With all the stress that these people have been under dealing with this COVID-19, some of them are going to be struggling in the future with PTSD. And also, I don't know why the governor did this, but the governor had pulled money from the schools. I think they're trying to put some back. In order to deal with COVID-19, these schools are going to need extra money to be able to have the right resources to actually open up safely. Now, I don't understand what's going on with that, but I had heard they were trying to put some of the money back to the schools that had been taken away from them.
That's correct. Last year we cut roughly $1.1 billion from the school budget. The governor's budget proposal was to add back $600,000. And let me just say that in the CARES Act that passed in December in Washington, D.C., there's $1.2 billion in that budget that goes to the school system in the state of Georgia. So not only are the school systems drawing down on state resources, they're also drawing down on federal resources as well. So there are a lot of money out there for our school system. However, we need plans and we need good guidance up in Washington, D.C. on how well those funds should be spent and how they should be spent.
Yeah, and that's why I made the statement. We're not struggling from an absence of money.
Mm-hmm.
We're struggling from mismanagement or lack of management of the funds. And I truly hope that the people that are in charge of the school systems will make the best use of the money that's been made available for them, because it takes plans in order to get ready to be able to open all these schools up safely. It's more than a thought.
Well, we've taken kind of a hands-off approach here in the state of Georgia with our school system. We have 180 school systems in Georgia, and there's no comprehensive plan at the state level on how each one of those school systems should deal with COVID in this environment. They're all trying to make their decisions individually. We can do better at the state level. The governor can provide much more guidance in how these school systems should deal with reopening, with distance learning, and that hybrid between the two. There's some school systems that are doing both. But it's unfortunate that we have not gotten that kind of leadership in our great state, and our school systems and our school superintendents deserve more, and we're not giving it to them.
Well, let me ask you about a veteran. What is the state looking at to help the vets, or what does, you project to do to help serve the post-service vets?
Colonel, sadly enough, we are not doing enough at the state level. I've served for the last several years on the Veterans and Military Affairs Committee, and I cannot tell you that the state has committed a lot of resources to veterans. We haven't. We have passed a lot of initiatives that allow veterans that move in and out of Georgia to carry their license. If they're licensed in one state, as an example, as an optometrist, then we will accept that license in Georgia. And we've also made it easier for their spouses to retain their licenses. So we've passed legislation to help the veterans out, particularly those that are transitioning from other states to Georgia. But in terms of putting real dollars and raw money behind them, we have been negligent, in my opinion, in that regard, that we have not supported a lot of these programs.
That's a good thing, Colonel Rose, what he just said, because when we was commanders and stuff, you got a lot of spouses moving around with their husbands.
Yes.
And they can't get a job because they don't have the necessary certification and stuff like that. So hopefully they get reciprocity and stuff when they come in.
And that is what we're doing now. We are accepting any licenses that those spouses may have from other states and not allowing them to have to get recertified in the state of Georgia, which would take a lot of additional schooling and, of course, a lot of additional time.
I'm going to put this out here, Colonel Rose, and I know it's probably not going to happen, but I just think I'm going to say it anyway. Maybe it can help. You say you're on the Veterans Service Committee for the state.
Veterans and Military Affairs, that's correct. It's last several years.
I know we got 600 acres up here in Canton, for the cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
We need about 300 on this side of town. I'll tell you why. If you're 1 minute late getting to Canton, you can't get in. When you have a funeral down here, trying to get through that traffic to get to Canton, you got to wait and go to the next day. Seems like to me, now it's just me, they ought to have at least 150 to 300 acres down here on this side, because it's split up. People don't realize it's split up. Everything northern side over there is taken care of by Fort Benning. Everything over here is taken care of by Fort Gord.
Mm-hmm.
When you get the honor guards and stuff, if you live over in the camp, you got to get Fort Gord.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed like if we had some land down here, like I said, probably won't happen, because have you been up to Canton, Colonel?
Oh, yes.
I mean, it make you want to lay down when you go up there. It's a beautiful place.
Yes, it is.
But getting to it, and when black folks have funerals at 11, 12, and 1 o'clock, it just ain't going to happen, man.
And in fact, I can tell you what happens now is that they have the funeral one day, and then they go to Canton the next day. I mean, that's the only way you can be on your time slot. You can't really just have the funeral and then go to Canton.
Ain't no crying at veterans' funeral. You know how people falling all out, and we got to go. You know, they snatching the body and getting them out of the church. Cause you know, I just thought I'd throw that out to y'all. Might could bounce that around. Somebody might could donate 200-300 acres down here in Rockdale or Newton County.
Right.
Someone there might could, you know, put a cemetery down there. A couple of things, Colonel Rollerson, because we don't have to get out of here. I hard go out to the young deputy sheriff of Fulton County, committed suicide.
First I've heard of that one.
It's a serious issue. I see this young man all the time. I go in the courthouse every day. I own a process business. And I go down there. I've talked to him before. Colonel Rollerson, you never know what a person is dealing with. Very humble, nice guy. Everything very polite. What makes a man? It's one thing for me to shoot you in your head, but it's another thing for me to shoot myself in mine. You've got to be in pain.
Yeah, you got to really be hurting and harm yourself.
A terrible pain, and his wife is a deputy up there, and that's just a bad situation. It affects everybody, not just the family there, but the other workers work there, especially the supervisors. I've had this before, Colonel Rose. I mentioned to you before when I was a validating officer, sending people over there to the war. I'm sure the supervisor is saying, "What could I have done?
Was it something I missed?
Something I missed?
Seen a sign or something?"
Yeah, you could have asked him how he's doing, how's his child doing, you know, how's his day, what do you think? You see, as leaders and stuff, we're too busy. We're caught up in a moment of the day just to say, "Hey, how's it going? What's going on with you?" You know? And if you live in the community, I saw you at the store the other night. Just, you know, something like that, make him feel warm. But at the end of the day, you're saying, that happened to me when I used to coach basketball in high school. One of my students at the University of Georgia, they gave him his cap and gown. They called him and said, "You 1 hour short. 1 hour. You're not going to graduate." He went and got a gun and killed himself. I said to myself, as a coach, you could have called me up. There's nothing you can't talk to me about. So that's going to affect the whole department down there. And when that affects the whole department, their readiness is not there.
That's correct.
It's not there. So our hats go off and to the family of that young man. And I take my hat off to the other guys who put their lives on the line daily. People don't understand. To be in law enforcement and the military, it's a different animal.
Yeah. And that's a lot of times people hear us talk on this show about things that happen, about things that officers do. That does not mean that we dislike law enforcement. There's certain limited actions that certain officers take that we will never like. But law enforcement in general, because in the military, especially in the reserves, we have had lots of soldiers that were law enforcement officers, you know, and so we fully support and understand what they struggle with on a daily basis. And those people, just like now, we was talking about the mental health situation. It gets back to training. See, the whole thing with training officers now is got to expand. You just can't go out there with the same old stuff you used to do, because policing a mental health situation is different than just regular policing a criminal situation.
Colonel Wilson, we're going to say this here. We're going to get on out of here. The old clock on the wall said, look forward to coming up. Black Miss Moses is going to be on the $20 bill. Harriet Tubman. We're excited about that. Suppose Mr. Biden going to make that happen. She's going to be on the dub. They call her $20 in the hood, the dub. Guess what they call it now, Colonel?
Now, you know up in northern Georgia, they ain't going to accept them bills.
They're going to call it a tub now. You know, they call it 20 a dub. They're going to call it a tub now, yeah. And listen, let me just say this about the election going on in District 90. We got a young man over there that the veterans are supporting, Mr. Joe Thibodeau. You know, I guess the rest of them, they ain't never heard about veterans. They didn't want no support. But the veterans I support, Mr. Joel Thibodeau. He's ready today. Look at it. He got an impeccable resume. He's ready to go serve today. Remember that name, Thibodeau. It got X at the end of it, don't it? We got to get out of here. Listen, I'm Amos King on behalf of the Amen Corner. Your name?
State Senator Emanuel Jones.
And I'm Colonel William Rollerson.
Let the church say,
Amen.
The views and opinions expressed or stated on this broadcast do not reflect those of WCRN Radio Network, C-Room TV, or any of its affiliates, officials, or employees.